Hi guys, welcome to this week's video on the subject of the general adaptation system, otherwise known as the GAS system. And the reason that I want to talk about this is because having a basic understanding of this scientific principle is fundamental to any efficient training program. And having a good grasp on the system and how to manipulate it within your training program is the only way that you're really going to get 100% out of your training program and avoid performance deteriorations by certain phases of the system, which we'll come on to in a bit. So what is the GAS system? Well, the general adaptation system is a scientific principle developed by a Canadian endocrinologist named Selye, and it basically describes the adrenal response to a stress, a physiological stress that affects the body state of homeostasis. By homeostasis I mean a state where we're at normal functioning. The stress disrupts us from that normal functioning, and the body fights and adapts to return itself to a controlled homeostatic level. Now there are three phases of the GAS system: the alarm, resistance and the exhaustion phase. The alarm phase consists of when you apply resistance that the body hasn't experienced before. If the stress is great enough, then the body experiences this stress, and what happens then is you get performance deteriorations via fatigue, and you get neural dysfunction and a reduced physiological capacity. And this has to be from a large enough stress. So when you apply overload in your training, what this overload will do is will implement the alarm system. So you get all this metabolic muscular damage that the body needs to respond to, and what it does is in the resistance phase this is where the response begins. Now the body will temporarily adapt to the stress, and you'll get a super compensatory response where the body will neurologically adapt, and it will push it will adapt above previous metabolic and homeostatic levels, and it will increase above those levels. And I'll produce I'm going to show you a graph shortly that will visually sum up what I'm saying. So you push the body adapts, and it pushes beyond the previous homeostatic levels via the neurological adaptation at a muscular level. There's chemical, structural, mechanical adaptations going on, so there's a really large input from the nervous system. Now what happens if the stress becomes chronic, and by that I mean it's applied over an extended period of time, without recovery, without any training protocol that incorporates a recovery strategy? Then you enter the exhaustion phase. What this chronic stress does is, if you apply repeated chronic stress, you'll get the symptoms of the alarm phase again. So the fatigue, physiological decrements, but this time they're enhanced. What you enter now is sort of an overtraining and staleness phase, and you also become highly susceptible to illness due to your homeostatic levels being pushed down, leaving you susceptible to illnesses. And when you enter this phase, the exhaustion phase and overtraining, it's not something you can just go to sleep and wake up from. It can take months, even years, seeing some athletes, to recover from this phase. And during this phase your body just simply can't adapt to the stress that's applied. So your body's not going to adapt performance-wise. The deterioration you experience, you're not going to improve beyond previous levels, you've gone below them. And this is usually due to poor programming and a poor understanding of what you're doing to the body when you're training. So this is usually via poor recovery strategies and not understanding the GAS system, and via poor training protocols. So what I'm going to put up now is a graph, so you can visually see what I've just been saying, and then once you've seen it I'll quick talk about that again, and then we'll go on to how you can manipulate your training program and components of your program to experience the supercompensatory response without reaching the overtraining phase. So if you have a look at the graph now, So hopefully what that graph would have shown you and just summed up what I said was that during the alarm phase, performance and your state of function would have deteriorated below your your previous metabolic and homeostatic levels. During the resistance phase, you get the supercompensatory response, and it increases beyond the previous homeostatic level. And that if you push too far, you'll deteriorate below into the exhaustion phase. You should also note that other factors can affect the state of the system, such as your nutritional status, your sleeping patterns, and sort of stress that you might be getting from your occupation or marriage. Just to give an example, but I want to look primarily at training. But it's important to always consider your food intake and nutrition, hydration, and also your sleeping patterns. But that's for another topic. So why do people either experience overtraining or they don't make any adaptations to the system? Well, commonly I see people, they do 4-week training programs where they have structured sets over a period of 4 weeks, and they'll do the same weight week in, week out for the 4 weeks, same number of reps, same number of sets, same load, no difference in load volume, and they wonder why they haven't made any adaptation, they haven't become stronger, and the training program hasn't done anything for them. Well, if you can't understand from what I've just said why that is, then you need to go back and listen again. But if you're not pushing the body and applying overload past the point of a normal homeostatic level, you're not going to get a supercompensatory response into the resistance phase. You're not inducing an alarm phase, and you're not giving the body a reason to supercompensate and push beyond and adapt. You need to continually force the body to adapt. So from 1 week to another, you've got to put some sort of overload on. So that might be increase in intensity by lifting an increased percentage of your 1RM. That might be by putting an increased volume, an increased load volume by lifting more repetitions and more load. So if say 1 week I did 10 reps of 100 kilos, I'd have a load volume of 1,000 kilos. The next week I do 12 repetitions of 100 kilos, I have a load volume of 1,200 kilos. Now that's just an example, that's no constructive sets there, but that's just showing you how the load volume increased. The frequency of your training could increase. This will be affected by seasonal cycles, whether you're in the off-season, pre-season, in-season. But during an off-season period, your frequency should be looking at 3 to 4 sessions roughly a week. Whereas during in-season, if you're maintaining that 3 to 4 frequency a week, then you are highly likely to push your body into a state of exhaustion. Because during the season it's more of a maintenance phase where you're looking to maintain gains you made in the off-season and pre-season. But due to the demands of an in-season schedule with the games, whether it's for football, rugby, or you're a track athlete, if your frequency is too high, you're not going to be at a peak performance. Your body's not going to be adapted, ready to participate. You're going to have all your alarm symptoms, and you're not going to be physically prepared for the activity. Another thing going on from that, so that's what would happen if you're not seeing adaptations in your training. You need to vary something up in your training program, continually overload throughout the weeks, throughout your cycles, to ensure that you are adapting, you're giving your body a reason to adapt. So what would happen if you overload too much, you don't have enough recovery? This is also something a lot of people do, and in a week, in a microcycle, they'll saturate their system with, they'll do legs, I hate that term, lower body. They'll do lower body 3-4 days in a row. At the end of the week, can't walk, can't sit down on the toilet, as you say, can't walk after leg day. And they do the same the week after, and the legs just don't function anymore. where's the effectiveness in that? You need to have effective strategy, recovery strategy in between. An example of this would be, if I'm training lower body on a Monday, I want ideally 48 to 72 hours in between my next lower body session, and this would be in an off-season period. This wouldn't be an in-season for sport. But say an example of an off-season period, I want 48 to 72 hours in between to allow my body, when it's been pushed into the alarm phase, to have that time for the resistance phase to adapt without providing chronic stress. Now you might incorporate into your cycles deload weeks. These are good to have sort of a, not a week off, but a week of taking the intensity down, volume down, maybe doing mobility work and technical work, and using that week to let your body really incorporate the resistance phase and adapt, induce the supercompensatory response without pushing yourself into the exhaustion phase. So I'm starting to ramble on a bit again, as I like to do. I don't want to keep this video too long, but hopefully you can understand from this why you might not be making gains, because you're not inducing enough overload, or you're putting too much overload in without recovery in between sessions. Recovery is as fundamental as the training program, so use a stretching, foam rollering, ice bath's a good one. Ensure you're recovering well. Always implement overload, but do it in a well-structured program that's based on you as an individual, that incorporates your seasonal cycles if you're a sports player, or if you're a gym user, use deload weeks to ensure that over a period of months you're not applying chronic stress that pushes you to the exhaustion phase. I hope that this has been simplified enough for you to understand, and there's enough for you to take out of it if you may not have known before. As I always say, please like my Facebook group, please follow me on Twitter, and please subscribe to YouTube. If you have any questions on this topic, feel free to post them at me. Thanks to everyone that has got interacted with me on it, and you know, I enjoy giving you response, and I enjoy hearing feedback from you. So good luck with your training. Hopefully you can take bits out of this if you didn't already know, and train hard. Cheers guys.